Hey guys, welcome back to the old mill shed. So if you remember at the end of the last video when we repaired the bush hog and I was up on the log yard bush hogging, you saw a bunch of smoke roll out from underneath the hood of the tractor, or the 4540. Well, today we're going to address that. So typically when you go from a tractor that is running fine and all of a sudden you're just belching black smoke, usually that means that you have lost the correct amount of air coming into the combustion chamber. Your tractor is suffocating. And that's what happened on this one. Now, if it starts getting, blacker and blacker and blacker over time, that typically tends to be an injector issue. And you could have like an injector pump go bad, and it start dumping too much fuel. I guess that could make it belch black smoke as well. But typically, you're just starving for air. And those of y'all that saw the filter video on this tractor, y'all probably already know what happened, because we covered it. Hey, this thing's flopping around, it's not working right. So I'm going to pop the hood on this. I'm going to explain to you what happened, and then we're going to fix it. So those of y'all remember from the video on the filters that this thing is not tied down. It can move around. It's not supposed to do that. You remember the part that we determined was not OEM. And what had happened when I started it up with that bush hog on there, I guess with all the vibration, this thing vibrated around to that position and then immediately sucked itself up to the hood of the tractor. So here we are looking underneath the hood of the tractor, and you can see right here where the air filter just rotated up and just sucked up tight right there, and that's what suffocated the engine out. You can also see, well, I don't know if you can see it in this view or not, we have a lot of soot from the exhaust, and I believe some of that is working its way around into the air cleaner as well. So we're going to figure out a way to get clean, fresh air into the air filter and lock it down to where it can't rotate around. See if we can't solve this problem. Make it where this won't rotate around, suck up to the hood again. And another thing is I want to get fresh air from outside of the hood in, and we're going to figure out a way to do that as well. Okay, so we're looking on the front side of the tractor. Here's the air cleaner here. You got your radiator here, and this bracket right here is where the air box originally mounted to. This is not the stock radiator, even though it is getting ready to be changed out. This one's junk. It's been hit. It's got a bunch of JB weld on it and all. I didn't see it before I bought it. I have had some heating issues because of it. The stock radiator is $1,600. This radiator here that will work actually works a little better if it's functioning. Is $109, so I understand why they put this radiator on instead of the stock one. But running this, it doesn't have that groove in it for the air cleaner pipe to come up and over. So that's why this was moved back to its current location. Which it's not stopped, but we can make it work. Okay, so now that we've determined on why this is back here, and it's going to pretty much have to stay in this area, we can start looking at how we're going to mount this thing. The only place I see that would be viable to mount this to is this little plate right here. It's got a couple threaded holes in it. Now I believe they're actually, I checked them the other day. I think they're some oddball metric, 7 by 1 1/4 maybe. Okay, so this is a few minutes later. I took that band and I moved it all the way back, and okay, we're getting closer to what we can use here. That has everything off the injector lines there. And let's see how this is going to clear the hood. So I've got a piece of dressed 1x6 here. And I know the hood hits right there. And then the bottom of it is, now it's still going to get pretty close. But we do have a little bit of a bulge in the hood right there. Let's see if that'll work. Okay, well it actually sits down a little lower than it did. I see the exhaust over here actually sits in its output hole a little better. Guys, I think that's going to work. Alright, so what we got here, I got a piece of metal. Who knows what it came off of. I think it'll fit up in here if I cut it. Maybe a little bit easier if I get some cardboard. But it's got some rigidity to it. I think what I'll do is I'm going to use this to make my mount. To mount right there. And then mount it underneath the air cleaner. And I'll probably just have to use some washers stacked up on top of each other to get the height correct. This seems like a good place to use some CAD. Okay, so CAD, what does that stand for? Well, in this instance, it stands for Cardboard Assisted Design. If any of you have ever watched any of the documentaries on the development of the P-51 Mustang, they talk about this a lot, as they were moving so fast and getting it going that lots of times they would have like a cowling or a bracket or something that hadn't been designed yet, and they was trying to put the pieces of this aircraft together. So they used cardboard, you know, kind of make it on the fly, and then they would give the cardboard to the draftsman to make an official print for the part. So we want this to sit about right here. I think it's where we had it. Okay, so here's our little bracket on the engine, and it's got to go over to about that distance right there. So we're going to, this doesn't have to be exact, and we can make little notes on it and everything, so when we lay it on our piece of metal to cut, it should work out pretty good for us. Well, that's got the correct depth, so I really don't want it pushing up against the valve cowl. Okay, so I moved the bracket back closer to the inlet hole. This is the part that comes out and goes into the engine. I think everything will clear. I've got our little template made up right here. I don't have exactly where the holes will go on this yet, but once I get this on here and bolt it down, then we can figure out where they need to go and then how high or low to set this so we clear our glow plugs but we don't hit the hood. Okay guys, here we are a couple of days later. Now this bracket isn't finished yet. You can see where I was using my portable power band. I kind of cut a little bit too deep there, and I've got to round off these sharp edges and all. But this is basically the bracket that we're going to use. It's going to mount up here like that. Yeah, I know that I got too close to the edge. when I was cutting it, it kind of led off a little bit. I only had about 1/8 of an inch to work with to start out with anyway. But as it sits here on this little piece right here, it's actually resting on top of our glow plug. We don't want that. We want a little bit of space there so it doesn't short out when I'm using them. We want we want everything to ground out through the glow plug so it actually heat up. We don't want it shorting out and not heating one up. So we're going to put 2 washers down. I think that's going to give us enough clearance. And we're not going to tighten everything up. We're just mocking it all in right now. Our air cleaner is going to sit here like this. Now, unfortunately, my dust clean out, I can't get it exactly vertical pointing down. And I also don't like how close this is sitting to the muffler over here, so we might need to either put a heat shield here, or I do have some heat reflective tape. Might be a better way of doing it, and just put that on the outside of this to reflect the heat back. And I can't put but so much of a heat shield here because the rod that is going to prop the hood up has to pass through here as well. Okay, we'll let that dry and then we'll put it on the machine. If you're wondering why I didn't put cardboard down, all this is getting ready to be taken down in a upcoming video, so I didn't really see much point in it. Okay, so our bracket has dried. Here we go, it's ready to bolt on. So what we're going to do first is we're going to hook our band on it, and then we'll bolt everything up. Well, no, we're not either. We got to put the air box in here. So let's do that first. Okay, so here's our air box. Now it's going to sit on the machine about like this, and the air is going to come in here, go through the filters, and then it will exit here and go down to where I have the towel draped over the intake on the engine. I just don't want anything getting down in there. Now I do have some heat reflective tape. Now I can hear some people say now that stuff's too thin to actually work, and if I hadn't actually used it before, I'd probably agree with you. But let me tell you a little story. When I was growing up, we had a wood stove in our kitchen. We heated our house with wood, and that was our primary source of heat. I mean, we ran a sawmill, we had slab wood. It was basically free. We'd been crazy not to. Unfortunately, the house I grew up in was really small, and the wood stove sat in the kitchen only about that far away from a wall. And what my dad did is he just took sheets of aluminum foil, taped it at the top and I think at the bottom on that wall, and then where it kind of turned and went up where the chimney was, and that was all that was there. And we burned primarily pine. I know what y'all gonna say. You never burn pine, it's going to, clog up your chimney. It's going to creosote your chimney up. And if you choke it down, or it's not properly dried, yes, you are correct. It will creosote a chimney up in a heartbeat. But we ran just dry pine, and at night we would throw like oak blocks in from the cross ties. But we would run that stove so incredibly hot that every year before we would start it up, we would go check the chimney, and you could still see the terracotta on the sides. It never creosoted up because we ran it so hot. We'd actually turn the sides of that stove cherry red sometimes by accident. We'd leave the drafts open a little bit too much or whatever. And even sitting that close to the wall with only that aluminum foil on it, you could pull it away from the wall and stick your hand back behind it, and the wall would be cool. Wouldn't be cold. It would be, it little more than lukewarm, but you could hold your hand on it no problem. It didn't even feel what I would say hot. And the only thing protecting that wall from the stove was aluminum foil. So we all know how thin that is. And what it was doing was just radiating all that thermal energy back into the kitchen. So this stuff does the same thing. So I'm going to put that on this, and then we'll start putting everything back together. Okay, so here we are. So it sits on the tractor like this, this being the front of the tractor. This is the part that's going to face the muffler over there. So not professional by any means, but I think it should help reflect some of that thermal energy away from the air in here. Keep the air just a little bit cooler going into the combustion chamber. Okay, so let's start putting this thing together. Hopefully it'll work for us. So we're going to put this up in here like this. And I'm going to put a piece of that reflective tape on this once I get everything kind of situated. Oh yeah, that's going to work nicely. Okay, so here we go. I got the reflective tape on the bracket as well. Okay, so it looks like our 2 washers are going to be enough. Let's go ahead and stick our bolts in here. Okay, so now that that's in, all we have to do is tighten down our band here. And we'll be ready to put a set of filters and the cap on it. I won't put the tape on the cap until I know exactly where it's going to sit. Alright. Okay, so now that this is on there nice and sturdy, the next thing we have to do is get our air from the output, our filtered air, down into the engine. This is the air pipe that we did have. See this big turkey turd weld on it. I can look down the inside and I see some little specks of light through the weld, which means we have small amounts of unfiltered air getting into the engine, which you don't want. So I went and bought this piece of 1.5 inches or 1 3/4 inches. It's yeah, 1 3/4 inch ID pipe, which will stick into here. I'll have to change this coupling right here. I'll have to cut some of that off, cut some of this pipe off to make it work, but it won't be that big of a deal. And then we'll clamp everything together, make sure it's airtight, and we'll be good to go. Okay, everything's gone together good. It should clear. I checked it before I finished tightening it up. Oh yeah, that works good. Okay, so everything seems to work fairly well, fit. I think the vent It's going to go right here in this area, just below the M and to the front. I think it's going to sit about right here. But what we need to do is we need to measure down to the ground, mark it, come back up and measure to the center of that air inlet pipe, and then cut a hole out so we can install the tube and install the screen over top of it. Okay, 43.5 to 19 inches forward. I'm going to go 19 forward. Wow, that's really going to be up here. I really don't want this thing to be up on the, I really want it to be down here on the side. So let's see how we can make that work. Okay, so I had briefly thought for a moment when I first did my calculations, it was going to be up here on the top of the hood, which we didn't want at all. I don't want rainwater running into it. So I thought maybe I could put it right here, but the pipe going back to the intake of the engine is right there. So I can bring it down to about right here, but I'm going to be awful close to a radiator hose, but I can shift it forward just a little bit. And with us pointing down at 45 and using that flexible pipe, that should let me do that, no problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark where I want this vent. I'm going to check again, make sure there's nothing behind it. And then I'm going to drill out the hole here. We'll put the hood back down and we'll figure out how to cut that flexible pipe. Now it's not going to sit up flush to this. It's just going to come down like here. Here it is on the outside. So this part will be the outside. I want the pipe to come in to about right here. Not going to be a tight fit, but air is going to follow the path of least resistance. So if it's right here at the screen, it's going to be pulling most of its air out from outside the machine, not the hot air from underneath the hood. But the air intake is the hose is going to come down to about right here. And it's going to be pointing at this screen right here. And I know it's not like sealed up or anything, but air is going to flow the path of least resistance. So whether it's getting cool air up from underneath this or it's coming straight through the screen, either way it's going to be getting a lot cooler air than if it's stuck up in here under the highest part of the hood with all that engine heat coming up on it. So there's your lower radiator hose right there that you're looking at. I don't know if you can see that or not. So I've got to pop this hood back up and bring that hose down to where it just clears that and points towards this opening. Okay, so there's the air intake pipe. I decided to go with the silicone instead of the metal one. And the reason being, it being so close to that radiator hose, the silicone is a little bit soft, and I think it'll be a little more forgiving if it was to end up, touching it or whatever. And I do have to still clamp everything down to where it will stay put, and then put the screen in over top. I might take another 1/4 inch off of this just to give just a little bit more clearance around it so it doesn't push it, side to side. So I'm going to button everything up. I'll install the screen, and then we'll take a look at the final product. Okay, everything is buttoned down. All my clamps are on. My screen is on. We're good to go. Sorry if this is shaky. I don't know how much you can actually see from the tripod with the loader in the way. So this morning we started with the bracket that is underneath here that we mounted this clamp onto, and then we put our heat reflective tape around about 3/4 of the way on this. That's still pointed towards the exhaust right there. This, like we said earlier, I can't really use my dust clean out, but it is what it is.
So the clean air comes up from here. Now the screen sits right out here. Comes up from the intake tube through the filters inside. Comes out here. And this is filtered clean air. This is the pipe that I bought at the auto parts store and just had to cut that end off of. And turns and goes down into the engine. So now we have got good cool air coming from outside of the engine bay into the engine. Now we need to go on the other side and work on getting the hot air out, so it's not hanging around up here either. Here's the muffler, and the exhaust pipe comes down here, 90-degree turn. Now the guy who owned this before me put this little piece of rubber hose on there, and I understand why he did. He was working with what he had available to him. So Drew, I'm not picking on you in any way, shape, or form, buddy. You worked with what you had, but it comes down, and then it comes out to right here, and it stops. Now I don't know if it was cut off this short or if it had to be cut back for whatever reason. What I do know is a lot of the exhaust gases go back up underneath the hood. That's why we have all that soot and everything up underneath the hood that I showed you the other day. So what I'm going to do, or what I am going to attempt to do, now I am going to keep this. I might need this in a minute or two. What I want to do is I want to make the hole in the hood about 4 inches around, to where this exhaust pipe has nothing to restrict the flow going out. Because right now, like half of it's covered up by the hole in the side of the hood. It don't even line up. So I'm going to put a bigger hole there where there's no restriction on the exhaust coming out. And then I want to take and make like a shroud on the hood that sits over top of this and open on the bottom, because you know heat rises. I ain't worried about the gas going down. I'm worried about the gas going up. And have it to where the gas has to come out from underneath the hood, or at least a lot more of it than it is now. And as I'm saying that, you see me move my finger. This is another example of when I say educated beyond your intelligence. This is the physical manifestation of that. In fact, this is probably going to get one of the Engineering Merit Badge of Shame awards at the end of the year. I've got about 3 to give out already. But this hot exhaust blows right on the gland seal of this lift cylinder. What were you thinking, people? Okay, so I've got the hood back down. Here's the exhaust port right here. And if I'm looking through it, the exhaust pipe, the bottom of the exhaust pipe is about right there. It's not even any opening. If I'm looking through the opening, the top of the exhaust pipe is about 2 inches back in there, and the top of it's about right here. The whole thing is sitting about 1 inch too high. So what I'm going to do, and I'm seeing some evidence of possible JB weld. That's going to be fun. I'm going to take this off, and I want to see what we're working with as far as putting that 4-inch. And what I'm using is actually a piece of dryer vent where it goes through a wall. It's got the little flange on it. Put that on here, and then put a piece of trim around it. Paint it black, make it look, somewhat nice. And that way, the top of it, when the exhaust pipe comes down and turns out, this will kind of just sit up over top of it and kind of come down over both sides. And that way the heat will, or the exhaust gases will come out and not back up underneath the hood here. So all I have literally done is taken this trim ring off. And I thought it was JB weld. Ended up being an old gasket that had gotten hard, so that was good. So technically, the way it sits now, the exhaust gas is going to exit a lot better than it has been. But I still don't want gas getting up in here. I don't think it'd be a lot of gas getting up in there, but I really don't want any. Every time I run this for a little while, I start to smell burning rubber, and I know it's coming off of this. But I really don't have any other way without buying a new muffler, and I really don't want to do that. They're not cheap. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that duct, I'm going to split it, and I'm going to see if I can just go from like maybe here up and around, and then maybe even modify this, cut all of that off, come down to something where it still look nice. Okay guys, so this is what I came up with. This is all that's left of that dryer vent, you know, where it goes through the wall. So I'm going to sit this in like this. Now I got to adjust it to where it fits that hole properly. But that goes back almost all the way back to the exhaust manifold. And that keeps the exhaust from going up and into the cabin, or to the engine area. And I will see if I can find some flashing around here and make me a piece that'll sit flat here, and just use the original 3 bolt holes to kind of sandwich this on here. And I might even paint it black or something, make it look nice. And that'll be the opening. And then we'll cut around the outside of that and make us a trim ring. That should be enough. Okay, well, I can just cut around here, and then we'll probably take a hole saw and drill that out, and take my 10 snips and cut around there, make it all look nice, and then I'll paint it, and then I'll show you when it's done and when we're installing it. Okay, so everything's painted and dried. I've got set screws, or socket head cap screws, put everything in with. We're just going to start back over on this side and work our way around. Okay guys, so there's the exhaust now. It gets out from in the hood a lot better now, I'm sure. And with the hood, the exhaust hood right in here, it won't be getting up in this area and putting soot all over everything. It all come on out now. And then on the other side, with the screen where it pulls it in from outside of the hood, and it's got a nice straight 2-inch diameter tube to go up into the air box, and then everything's not flopping around with all that. And it also has that heat reflective tape on it. This thing should breathe a lot better and should get a lot of the exhaust out. Now we still have the issue of the exhaust blowing onto the gland seal that we're going to have to fix. I say we, me. And I'm probably not going to hit that next, because even though it's leaking a little bit, it's not bad. And I have some other issues that need to be fixed first. Okay guys, so that's the video. I realize a lot of people don't own Montana 4540s. I get that. It's a 20-year-old machine. However, I do know a lot of people, you know, lots of times if you get an older machine,
like say in this case, the radiator. The radiator might be extremely expensive if I go OEM, but I can get one that'll work as good or better for 1/10 of the price. It just means I've got to move some stuff around. Not everybody wants to go out and spend $35,000, $45,000, $50,000 on a machine that maybe they only have 2, 3, 4, 5 acres to work, and the cost of a new machine is prohibitive. These videos that I'm doing, those are the people that these are really geared towards. I realize that you're dealing with older machines, you don't always have everything you need to fix them. And when I do this and I make a video, it's not a how-to video so much. It's a video of I'm trying to convey to you my thought process of working through problems that you're going to run into. And I convey that thought process by actually using it on different projects or different situations that come up. So as always, thanks for watching. I hope you found the video helpful or maybe even entertaining. If you did, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It helps the algorithm a lot. We'll see you here next time under the shed.